Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, church. Just a reminder, you are the church. It's not a building that you go to, it's the people that go to it. The building is just shelter. So, good morning, church. I hope everybody's doing well. Hopefully, I got a good message for you guys today. Um, the nice thing is, with this message, I have a couple examples of uh, how this applied to my life. And it's a good one. And I really hope you apply this to yours. I know what it's like to be an underachiever or have gift, a talent, or potential, but be too afraid to use it or reach for it. And what I really want to do today is show you how it's in God's plan for us to use our gifts. We're all given different gifts, right? And sometimes if you compare yours to other people, it might not seem fair what you got, but God is so good at using small things to do big stuff. You can't ever count out um, God's plan. So today we're going to be in a few different books. Uh, we're going to jump around a little bit, and then I'm going to give you some examples of where I've seen this in my life, and they're pretty crazy because it put me in some places that I just had no business being, uh, but they were very beneficial places, and the reward was great. So Proverbs 18:16 is going to be pretty much the overlying topic here of everything that I talk about. So Proverbs 18:16 says, "A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men." All right. So, like I was saying, God gives us all gifts, right? And I'm going to give some examples in the Bible here. David's going to be the main one, but I'm going to warm up with a couple. And you can probably find about 12. You can find more than that. It's just some of them are very literal in giving gifts. What I'm talking about is exploring the gifts that we have and using them unto the Lord. So, first person and probably one of my favorite people in the Bible, if not the most favorite outside of Jesus, is Joseph. And I'm not talking about Mary's Joseph. I'm talking about Joseph from Genesis, right? So Joseph had got accused by Potiphar's wife of trying to sleep with her, right? When she was actually the one that was trying to seduce him. Um, Potiphar obviously probably out of pride and protection of his status, um, threw Joseph in prison. He probably knew the truth, but his honor and his position um, really demanded that he put Joseph in prison. But so Joseph's in prison, and he's in prison with these other guys that are in prison that worked in the king's court, and they had these dreams, and Joseph was able to interpret these dreams accurately. And he interpreted one because the guy was going to get executed, and the other guy's dream, the interpretation showed him getting restored to his position. I'm pretty sure he was a cook. Um, Cook or a cupbearer. There's a cook and a cupbearer. Anyways, it doesn't matter which one. And later, uh, Pharaoh had a dream, and none of his mystics and prophets and all the crazy fake stuff that he had around him, none of those people could interpret it. But he knew that it was sent from God. And the guy that Joseph was in prison with remembered Joseph's ability, his gift to interpret these dreams. He told the Pharaoh about it, and Pharaoh let Joseph out of prison. Joseph interpreted his dream correctly, and Joseph became Pharaoh's right hand man in charge of everything, was practically ruling Egypt. All right. So that's what Proverbs is talking about. All right. God gives you a gift. And if you use it unto the Lord, right? If you use it to serve others, if you use it to glorify God, if you use it in good faith, it will make room for you. All right. In the destiny that God has for you. So A very similar story, except for Daniel wasn't in prison. All right. Daniel got notoriety in King Nebuchadnezzar's court with his ability to interpret dreams. And we all know, Daniel went through the lion's den, et cetera, et cetera. There was still adversity, but he gained favor, and that gift made room for him, not just in the king's court, but later after Nebuchadnezzar died, the next king released Israel. And this was all rooted from this interpretation of the dream. It had to happen for everything else to happen. So he didn't just make Daniel's gift didn't just make room for Daniel. It restored the Jews to Israel after being in captivity in Babylon for a ridiculous amount of years, right? A lot of people had lost hope. A lot of people didn't even go back. They were so accustomed to Babylon or they were born there. So a lot of them stayed. That's how long that captivity was. But again, that's where his gift made room for him again in a king's court. So the biggest example in the Bible, and I think some people probably um, don't see this, is David. Okay, so we got to remember King David before he was King David was the seventh son, the smallest son, and he was made to be a shepherd. So he spent all of his time tending his father's flocks. That's a lot of time alone. That's a lot of overnights in the wilderness and in the wilderness. All right. And I can see through my own seasons of isolation, right, where God will separate me from people and stick me alone a lot of the time. I spend a lot of time with God, and that's where my relationship gets stronger. That's where I can hear the Lord better. That's where God works things out of my heart that I'm still struggling with, whether it's forgiveness, love, etc. And this shepherding, is where David got this really close relationship with God and is probably the catalyst for this relationship where God said that David was a man after his own heart. So he didn't just sit there the entire time talking to God. He wrestled lions, bears, all sorts of stuff to protect this flock. So he learned how to fight. He learned how to be courageous, fearless, but he learned how to play the lyre. All right. So and it's a stringed instrument. All right. If you want to visualize a banjo, a ukulele, a guitar, a harp, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you visualize it. It's a stringed instrument. And what do you think he did in that pasture? He played unto the Lord, right? He perfected this and he was an excellent player. So when we go to 1 Samuel 16:17, this is after Saul had disobeyed God and, you know, God had already anointed David. God put the spirit of heaviness on Saul, where he was restless. He never had comfort. He was paranoid. He was sad. It was like melancholy that was placed on him. So one of his advisors recommended that he get a good lyre player. All right, that could soothe him when he was having the spirit of distress that the Lord put on him. And one of his servants said to call for David, son of Jesse, because he was an excellent lyre player. So he sent message to Jesse. Jesse sent David, and David had the spirit of the Lord on him. He had already been anointed to be the next king of Israel, right? So the spirit of the Lord had departed Saul, and the spirit of heaviness came in place. So David's gift of being able to play the lyre got him into the king's court. And he did. He soothed the king. His gift got him and made room for him in the king's court. In the spirit of the Lord, that favor that was on him, in conjunction with his gift, soothed Saul. And it says that Saul looked at David with favor. Basically, he looked at this young kid and he liked him. He brought him pleasure, he brought him joy where he was suffering. That that happened before David killed Goliath. David was able to go up and talk to Saul. Saul knew who he was. Saul even tried to talk him out of it because he was so small. But without that time in the pasture, the without David using his gift and playing unto the Lord, that room would have never been made. Nobody would have thought of him. Nobody would have brought him in there. But David leaned into this gift, right? This musical talent that God gave him that seemed probably quite pointless as a shepherd. And that made room for him. And nobody would think that. You have to understand, like, you might feel like you have an insignificant gift, but God can use anything to get you in the right rooms. And I'm gonna share two stories from my own life of where my gift got me in the right room. So I grew up, my dad owned a business. My dad was always great at talking to people, and I got to go to work with him a lot, and just see him interact socially. So I've always um, been able to talk to people and just be myself and have some comfort there. More so, these last few years, as far as being comfortable with being myself. But I've always been able to talk to people. I've always been genuine, and I learned that from my dad. So it's this gift. So I think it was like 2014, 2015, and I'm fresh out of prison. I got a job. I'm making like $15 an hour and doing like landscaping. I ended up owning like half the company later, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but I remember I was working these high rises in Cleveland, and I was just blowing stuff off. And me being me, like I talk to people, I make friends, like I'm social. So I can talk to anybody. I can talk to a homeless guy. I can talk to President of the United States. It doesn't change anything for me. Um, so I'm here like twice a week all summer long, and I get to know the property manager. And she's pretty cool. She's nice, you know. Yeah, and you're talking about 5, 10 minute conversations at a time over an entire summer. And so I end up having to go there during the winter to do something. Um, and she said, "Hey," she's like, "I know you do construction on the side because that's was my side gig at the time." She's like, "Do you know anybody looking for a maintenance man position?" And she's like, "We have a company that provides maintenance, but they're terrible and we're going to fire 'em." And I just had this epiphany and I asked her, I said, "Hey, are you opposed to hiring another company to do it?" And she's like, "No, why do you ask?" I was like, "I would love to do the job." I was like, "But obviously, I work for this other company, but I'll start a company tomorrow and we can we can figure this out. I can probably do it cheaper than they did and do a better job." And she's like, "Yes, absolutely." You know, and this is like a $10 million building. Like I just got out of prison. I really got no business in this conversation, but my gift, all right, of being able to talk to anybody really it got me in the room, and it was a couple months later, started a company, signed a contract worth over $1 million, first business that I ever started, ever owned. Um, like I said, fresh out of prison, my gift made room for me. All right. So the second story that I got is more recent, and um, one of my clients, who's a really dear and close friend to me, had um, said that him and some people were thinking about a business venture. And it was something that I had been a part of in the past, not with them, but with other people. And he knew it. And he was looking for somebody like as an advisory role, maybe a partner. He wasn't sure. Um, but again, that gift, right? That gift that I had in that really specific sector of business. All right. got me into this conversation. And um, there was a lot of red tape, et cetera, et cetera. And he is best friends with the senator. And uh, they invited me to dinner, and I got to sit down and have dinner with him and a senator, which I'm not going to name because I don't do that, and the rest of it's private anyway. So I really don't want to get into that. But I tell you what, I'm a very social person, but people of influence, power, respect, wisdom, um, I'm very quiet around because I'm just trying to soak that up. And this is probably like the most honest person in the world, which doesn't happen often for a senator, I can tell you that. I've met a handful of them in passing just from being in the military, et cetera. But I actually got to sit down for a couple hours and have like an intimate conversation and talk about some business plans, et cetera, et cetera. And, but again, like my gift made room for me at that table for that experience. So if you look at athletes, right? Their gift makes room for them. If you look at singers, their gift makes room for them. And if you can sing, hone it in the shower, sing to the Lord, sing gospel music, whatever you got to do, God gave you a gift. All right. That whole parable of the talents, and I'm not going to cite scripture and verse on it. Look it up. But it is a parable where Jesus talks about God gives, it's a parable and it's talking about God gives people who use their talents more talent. All right. So even if the small gift that you have, you can't see any way for it making room for you, hone it, use it in service of God. So that way he can add other talents to you. I swear I did remodeling for 6 months. I had done like rough construction, etc. But like interior remodeling, I did for 6 months. The guy I was working for went out of business because he was just terrible at managing money. Um, it put me in a bad spot. But somebody had called me, asked me to do this small kitchen job, and I needed the money because I just ended up without a job. And they literally started my business for me. This woman had like 9 businesses. She literally helped me pick a name, registered it for me, took it off the bill, helped me figure out advertising, marketing, how to get other clients, and I didn't skip a beat. I started a remodeling company, and I took in the first 2 years, I probably took 20 jobs that were stuff that I had never done before. But but I YouTube University did it and watched videos. I figured out how to do it. I did an excellent job. I got referrals and everything took off from there. And that was God because, you know, I recently just got out of the construction trade and didn't really have much of a choice. But I worked with so many other people that have been doing it for 20, 25 years that would call me and ask me how to do stuff. And it was a supernatural gifting. It just really was. Um, I can't remember if it was Mozart or Beethoven, but one of them learned how to play the piano at this ridiculously young age, and they were just able to sit down and play it. That was their gift, right? You have a gift, whether it's social skills, whether loving people is a gift. You know what I mean? Like having a deep sense of empathy and social responsibility to others. That is a gift. And if you don't believe me, if you have that, go look out in the world and see how many people don't have it. There's days that I come home and I'm disgusted that we live in a world that lacks integrity, empathy, sympathy, where you know what I mean? Like, man, if I got a few dollars and I see somebody with a sign, I don't care if I think they're gonna go buy alcohol or drugs with it. That's not my business. The fact is, they're poor, they're needy, and they're sitting out there with a sign. I just give it to them, right? We're called to love each other, not judge each other, not decide what measure of love we give each other. So whether it's an ability to sing, whether your love language is generosity and God has just richly rewarded you so you could be generous to others, whatever your gift is, I'm telling you, it covers everything. Use it unto the Lord, and He will make room for you in places that you never thought that you could be. And I'll add more talents, more gifts. And as you use those, it just expands more and more and more. So felt led to share this today. This is something that God's been giving me bit by bit over the past couple of weeks. And you gotta do it. I'm telling you. If you're not where you want to be, all right, if you're a dreamer, if you got high hopes for what you want to do in the future, using your gifts and doing them unto the Lord, whatever it is the same thing as giving Jesus a couple loaves of bread and a couple fish. He will multiply it. I promise you. It happened over and over and over. And here it's happened in my life. I can testify to it. And I tell you, I am no more special than any of you guys. I am so ordinary. I am almost boring. I think, I watch way more documentaries and read nonfiction than probably anybody you know. I'm a nerd by every uh, category that determines that. So if God will do it for me, a man that has made so many mistakes but still loves the Lord, he will do it for you. I promise. You just have to do it. You just have to use your gift. That's it. Don't sit on it. God made you you for a reason, and he made you to be you, not to be anybody else. I just had that conversation with somebody today. They were asking if they should go to school for um, design work. And I said, no, because they're wonderful at it already. And I said, they're just going to put you in a system that really puts barriers around you. Like God made you to be you. And that's what makes you special. That's what makes your gift special. So I hope this encourages somebody. As always, I love you guys. And I love to see people win, especially when it comes to strengthening the relationship with God and then watching what God does in their life. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope you guys have a beautiful week. It's actually a nice sunny day, even though it's cold. But I pray for everybody that sees my videos and that they find the right people. So God bless y'all. I love y'all. Have a great week.